Today's question is, what was your worst Redditors that had their weddings ruined? How and what happened?
I worked as a wedding decorator for 5 years, and while this is not my own wedding, it's still pretty bad. 2 years ago, we did the decor for a really pretty ceremony, and halfway through the day, we found out it was a surprise wedding. Basically, they were not engaged, but the bride planned the whole thing, and the groom showed up at the golf course thinking he was just playing a regular round of golf. Nope. He walked into his own wedding, saw her standing at the altar, and pieced the fuck out. As he should have. I've also seen weddings where fistfights break out and we've had to call the cops. There was another where one of the guests was smoking inside and caused a fire, causing the entire wedding to evacuate into the rainy parking lot. Those and countless glasses of wine spilled on wedding dresses. That happens a lot. I once DJ'd a half-black, half-white racist wedding. The groom was a skinny, white, nerdy-looking guy, and the bride was a larger African-American woman, both in their early 20s. From the start, I could feel a weird tension and hostility in the room, but thought, okay, maybe something just happened at the ceremony that I missed, and shook it off. The night went on with a rather silent crowd, until it got to the speeches. First to go was the best man, who gave a warm-hearted, nice guy roast about the grill. Then the maid of honor with an average, I don't do speeches, love, laughter, happily ever after, cheers, and escape. Then came the parents of the bride. They both march up to the podium and the father takes the mic. I love my daughter, and I know her to be a smart woman. I do not approve of this mixed shit. Done. Walks back to seat. My mouth is wide open at this point, while I hear major chatter from the crowd. The bride and groom must have been used to it, because they just smiled at each other and looked on for the next onslaught. Father of the groom gets up to the podium. So as most of you all know, my boy went off to university like a big shot for 4 years. 2 years in, he calls me and says, "Dad, I've met a girl that I might marry." I say, "That's great, son. When can I meet her?" He brings her home for a weekend back in November, and all I can remember is sitting in the kitchen. He walks in, and she gets him behind him. And I'm like, BM, what the hell is that? Didn't see the shit coming. Fuck it. Cheers, drinks his wine, and sits back down. As soon as the dinner and speeches were done, everybody but the bridal party left. So I said, "You've got a hall, all the booze you can drink, all your best friends, your new husband/wife, and a DJ. Might as well celebrate." So I set up karaoke and we all sang and got smashed for the rest of the night. Best wedding ever, despite the ignorant people. 50% of the people who RSVP'd didn't come. My brother-in-law who volunteered to DJ didn't actually bring any DJ equipment, so our reception was powered by Pandora. He also said he would video the ceremony and highlights of the reception but didn't bring his video camera. The florist forgot to deliver about 50% of the flowers. The reception venue took everything we discussed and then decided to do the opposite. Not enough tables, big weird glass centerpieces, no dance floor, and when we tried to get it fixed, the man who was sent to change out the tables stood outside the window of the reception hall angrily smoking cigarettes. I later spoke with a friend who has worked with that man who explained that that sort of behavior happens pretty much any time he is asked to do anything. So, we made a CD of music for my brother-in-law to play before the ceremony began. He insisted that he had something better. It was 2 songs played on repeat for about an hour. My immediate family was late to the wedding, including my sister who was a bridesmaid, and my mother and father. They had originally offered to help set up everything that morning, but I guess they just got a late start. My veil got lost the night before the wedding. It still has not resurfaced. After everyone was done eating and the cake had been cut, I dimmed the lights in the reception hall to change the atmosphere to a more fun, party vibe and get people dancing. Everyone got up and left. It didn't go great, but my husband and I ended up married and we're still very happy together, and that's the most important thing. Still, I wish I'd saved the money from the whole thing and gotten married at the county clerk instead. So many things happened. My wife's parents were against us getting married. That's a long story for another time. First, my wife's brother is a pastor. She wanted him to perform the wedding. Her parents talked him into refusing. Then my FIL said he wouldn't walk my wife down the aisle. Then, when we were continuing to plan the wedding anyways, my ML surprised us by showing up at our door. Luckily, she lived in Washington and we lived in Southern California, and my wife's brother, not the pastor, was able to warn us that she was on her way. We then found out that she had an appointment set up with our pastor and my parents to try to get the rest of them on their side to get us to call off the wedding. It didn't work, and my ML was shocked when she was told by my pastor they're adults and can make this decision for themselves. I've known Strider 820 for years, and he's a good man. That was the final straw. We canceled the wedding and went to the courthouse to get married by a judge, followed up by some breakfast burritos on the way home. When we got back, my ML was trying to get my wife to get an annulment, including giving her information on how and where to get an abortion in case that was a factor. My wife's brother was upset, saying that we were basically saying fuck you to the whole family, to which we replied, well, yeah. Then her parents planned a joke of a wedding where we got no say in who, where, or what was involved. They had the wedding in Washington, so it was cold, wet, and gray. That also caused the only people from my family to be there to be my parents. My best man was my wife's brother, who I didn't like at the time, as my best friend was too poor to make the trip to Washington. They basically didn't think we were really married until after that glorified party. It really would have been nice if they used all the money they used to throw a circus to help us with a down payment for a house or something instead. It has caused issues between me and her parents ever since. Meanwhile, we've been happily married for almost 9 years. Edit. More details, typo, and a quick why. I finally get to share a story. Edit 2. A little more venting. It's been 9 years, and this still makes me so mad. Edit 3. Forgot to include what my MIL had planned when she showed up at our door. Edit 4. I should also point out that now, 9 years later, I actually have a decent relationship with her parents. While it's a little bumpy from time to time, and I still have a hard time not being angry about all the crazy early in our relationship and marriage, we get along better than I ever thought we could. TLDR, I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. My husband and I got married a month before our actual wedding. Just for background info, the night before the wedding, at the rehearsal dinner, he broke up with me in a text message. Told me to pack my shit and get out by Monday. We were already technically married. I was running on 3 hours of sleep and nerves. This was after he was so drunk he could barely recite the vows during the rehearsal. He'd been ignoring me for about a week up until that point. I went to speak to his stepfather about the text I received, only to have him blame everything on my mother, whom he called crazy, to my face. And I have no idea how she was relevant or what she is to be blamed for to this day. This started a huge fight between families. I mean, adults screaming obscenities at each other in public while I stood in a corner and cried on my best friend's shoulder because I was so embarrassed and disappointed and disgusted. My husband was screaming at anyone who would listen about how terrible I was. My father, who did 20+ years in the army and is retired, later told me that he was so angry that he felt he was experiencing PTSD. He is 61 years old. I have never seen his eyes look so dead, and I'll never forget violently he shook. I felt like I had aged 10 years that night. I was so worried my dad was going to have a heart attack or a stroke. I'm tearing up just typing that. My parents paid for everything. The wedding venue, decorations, a DJ, the food, bridesmaid stuff, groomsmen stuff, my dress, hair, makeup, everything. They shelled out greater than $12,000 for me to have my dream wedding, only to be ruined because I married an asshole with a personality disorder. And I don't mean that in a haha, what a jerk way. This dude has some serious issues that I should have not handled by looking the other way because he was pleasant 50% of the time, if even that. And no, I'm not blaming myself. Did I mention his 7-year-old daughter witnessed all of this? Because she did. I will also never forget her asking me when we were gonna have the wedding again. I can't imagine what she told her mother. People, if someone constantly says their exes were cunts and no one treats them right, and everyone is an asshole. They're the problem, not you. Run while you can. Anyway, I'm still kind of bitter. Mainly because it was humiliating and so much money was wasted. I had to send all the gifts back. People were embarrassed for me. People traveled to come share what was supposed to be a special day with me. After a while, all the pity started making me angry. My therapist had a field day with that. I still had the party, it just went from being a wedding to my mom's incredibly expensive graduation party. I'm glad it was an open bar too. I drank a lot of bottles of champagne that weekend. Beautiful, beautiful venue. It looked like a mansion. I never want to see it again. And this is the end of today's video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to comment an anecdote or experience similar to the topic of the video. Leave your like, share if you liked the video, and lastly, don't forget to activate the little bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. Bye-bye.